Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another book review here on the channel, or a series review I should say. It's been a while since we've done one of these. I don't know if you'll have been able to tell from recent thumbnails, but I've filmed quite a lot of videos today, so I'm sat up with my second cup of coffee and I'm ready to go. Today I want to talk about Charlie Jane Anders' Unstoppable trilogy. I don't have intro music for this. I don't know why I paused like there's intro music. Some quick disclaimers before we start. I had digital review copies for free from the publisher for every single book in this series. Regardless of where books come from, nobody's paying me to talk about books and all opinions are my own. I'm going to keep this as spoiler free as humanly possible while still talking about all three books. If you do want to go in knowing absolutely nothing, click away now. Come back when you've read it, we'll chat then. And I will link the story graph for the books below in case you want to check out any user-generated content warnings. This is a YA sci-fi space opera series that has been coming out since 2019. I'm lying to you. 2021 to 2023, we've had these three books, the titles of which are, can I do it in the right order? Victory's Greater Than Death, Dreams Bigger Than Heartbreak, and Promises Stronger Than Darkness. Whew! And the covers are all fairly similar. There is an alternate cover, but I like these more, so I'm going to put these up on screen. Charlie Jane Anders is an American writer and commentator. My first book of hers that I read was All the Birds in the Sky, which I really enjoyed, kind of genre blendy kind of work. And then I also read The City in the Middle of the Night, which is more of a sci-fi, but a real trip. My kind of hallmark of Charlie Jane Anders is weird fiction, I would describe it as, but in the best way. What is this series about though? Our main character, Tina, is a girl living on Earth, living her best life, interestingly, knowing that she is in fact the clone of an alien general, and one day the aliens are going to come get her. The beacon in her chest will glow, and she will be taken off to take up the mantle of this general. She will be replaced by the general, and she will go on as the general. Things don't necessarily go 100% to plan, and Tina and her best friend Rachel end up being caught up in a sort of intergalactic war. Difficult to explain. It's a very complicated political situation, and they also get in there with a bunch of other very skilled humans from Earth who get kind of conscripted into this war as well. It is Band of Plucky Humans, but it's interestingly not Band of Plucky Humans against the galaxy. It is Band of Plucky Humans with other parts of the galaxy against other parts of the galaxy. It's a very, very gay series. I don't think anyone would be surprised if you have read any Charlie Jane Anders stuff before. This is even more so. It's doing that thing, I think, where in YA books you often get there's an urge to explain things a little bit more, perhaps, to give that representation to teenagers. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it can sometimes not work. Case in point, Once and Future, which is a book series that I should have loved and didn't because it was just too much explanation. In this case, I think the sci-fi setting really lends itself to that celebration of various different identities because we have alien world building, which is one of my favourite things. So Charlie Jane Anders represents a whole variety of aliens in this world, and for obvious reasons, not all of them would have a human understanding of gender, and also not all of them speak the same language. So there's interesting things like the universal translator is called the Everyspeak. I think I'm remembering that correctly. One of the things it does is it makes sure you're always using the correct pronoun for someone, even if they're a person who changes their pronouns regularly. So it's interesting stuff. I like that idea of imagining not only what a future world where it would be easier for, humans to manage this, but also a world where we didn't have an understanding of the gender binary or even a species understanding of anything because everything was so different. I think it works well, and it means that those slightly clunkier explanations make a bit more sense in the structure of the book because you're having to explain something to humans who don't necessarily understand everything. There's sapphic relationships, there's ace representation, there's trans representation, there's a whole host of other things in there that I probably didn't pick up on or haven't remembered, but yeah, a really diverse series in a lot of different ways. I've already touched on it a little bit, but the alien world building is probably one of my favourite aspects of this series, and I'm sad that we don't really get as much of it until book 2. It's definitely imagining, in a lot of ways, a better world, but I think what Charlie Jane Anders does really well is present you with this better world and then pick it apart. So even something like the Everyspeak, which in other sci-fi works would be, I have written off the problem of translation, they have the Everyspeak, everyone can understand each other perfectly. By book 3, Charlie Jane Anders is going, do we understand each other perfectly? Is the Everyspeak actually the answer to the problem? And that's really, really fascinating for me. And to write a world where you write almost a utopia and then pick it apart a little bit and see where the problems with that are is one of my favourite things. But there's also interesting other bits, like what does alien art look like? What is the concept of art to a species that doesn't perceive the world in that way? It's really fascinating, and that's definitely one of the themes of the book, is how different people see things and how that can have an impact on how you see things. I think the themes of this series are really rich and really interesting. I think it's a really great series for provoking discussion, especially, hopefully, around younger people. These themes of friendship and love and the relationship between the two, and what's not necessarily more important, but how they are both important, and romantic affection and platonic affection are just as significant. Also, anti-imperialism, anti-genocide, all of that stuff in there as well, alongside almost just war theory comes in, especially towards the end. There's a theme of trauma and processing your trauma and how everyone processes trauma differently. Not necessarily theme, but background idea that I probably should have brought up earlier of affirmative consent. There's a lot of characters asking if they can hug one another, which I thought was really interesting. And again, just trying to set a world where those things are the norm can be really difficult, and I think Anders handles it really well. So yeah, there's so many different themes you could dig into in this book, and I think every time you read the series you would feel very differently about those themes. I definitely found that I picked up the recovery from trauma, or that slow recovery from trauma, in this reread, where I reread books 1 and 2 to read book 3, and that really came through for me. I love Tina's best friend Rachel. She's one of my favourite characters, and her journey throughout the 3 books is really, really beautiful. And what I like about her in particular is she is a character who often has to just go and be by herself for a bit, and she's allowed to do that, both in the sense that her friends are like, yep, off you go, Tina, you do your thing, and also that the book never says, you know, Tina was weird for doing that. And Tina still has to process how she feels about that and process the fact that that is different from other people. But the book is very much presenting it as this is something that you have to do, and you're a person who has realised that about yourself, and that's a good thing. And as somebody who very frequently has to go and be by myself for a bit, I felt really seen by that. So, flip side of all of that, why might you not want to read this series? Because I don't think it's one that's going to be for everyone. Not just for the fact that it's YA and not everyone enjoys YA. That's just, I feel like I shouldn't have to say that at this point. I do think particularly book 1 is paced very weirdly, and I thought this the first time I read it, and I definitely found it on a reread as well, so it's not just me reading it in a bad mood. I think that Charlie Jane Anders writes in such a way where she just gets you to the point that you need to get for the story to progress, especially in book 1, that there's a little bit, it feels to me, a little bit of, just trust me on this, just agree, we'll get there. And it means that some things happen very quickly, some things feel like you're introduced to characters very suddenly, characters get on board with things in a way that doesn't feel particularly realistic, at least to me. I think once you get to know those characters a little bit more as the book goes on, that becomes more apparent, but it does feel a little bit, don't worry about it, we've just got to get to the plot. So I think book 1's pacing is probably the worst, the weirdest, the least familiar to me. Book 2 and book 3, it definitely gets a little bit easier to process, a little bit more predictable. Book 3 more so than book 2. So it's a gradual progression. I think that's sort of part of the Charlie Jane Anders of it all. That's definitely something that I also found in The City in the Middle of the Night. It's been so long since I read All the Birds in the Sky that I genuinely don't remember the pacing of that, but I definitely feel like this is someone who, if you like her writing, you'll know quite quickly, and it's something that you definitely have to immerse yourself in. You have to get in the right headspace and keep reading. So I found that book 1, I was a little bit, I don't know, am I going to enjoy this reread? Am I going to have a good time? Are these going to take too long? And by book 3, I was so steeped in it that I had a much better time, which is another thing I remember about reading The City in the Middle of the Night. Once I was in, I was fully in. It just took a little bit of time to get there. So I would say if you give yourself the time and the space to sink into it, you will have a good time with this. In terms of other YA sci-fi, I haven't read a huge amount of it, and not all of it I would recommend. I mentioned Once and Future, but I don't personally love that series. That's Arthurian sci-fi. Aurora Rising is another one where I feel like there's probably some similarities, but that's not necessarily an author I want to promote. I don't really know. Wayfarers is another really queer-focused sci-fi, but that is adult. YA sci-fi, not always my thing. Who would have thought? So should you read this series? I would say I've come out more on the yes side than I was expecting to. I think because I liked book 3 so much, and because I think the themes are so interesting and the world building is so interesting, it is a good time. It is still a YA book, so you have to be on board with the emotions of, albeit very mature, teenagers. I'm not always in that place where I want to hear about their relationship struggles, but in this case I did find that I enjoyed that, and I think there's so much to be got out of this series in terms of imagining a future or imagining another world that I think they're worth reading. I like a book that features humans but isn't Earth-centric. Have you read these? Do you have plans to now that the third book is about to come out? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're down there commenting, also your YA science fiction recommendations, please and thank you. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. You can also follow me on social media. Come hang out on Discord where we have chill chats about books. I'd like to say a huge thank you to all the ghosts who haunt me over on Patreon. They support the channel and in return get early access to videos, bonus content, live streams, and more. If you'd like to join their number, that's linked below as well. Thank you so much for watching. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. It's gonna be some bloopers now. And the dog's looking at me in a strange way. She's seen a fly.